It is time for Around the 412 with Smitty and Tyler.
Welcome back to another episode of Around the 412. I am Tyler. With me, as always, is my co-host Smitty. Go follow us on all of our social medias at Around the 412. While you're at it, go check us out on YouTube there as well. If you're not watching there already, leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that bell so you never miss a video that we post. Also, whether you are over on YouTube or on the listening platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you find your podcast, go check out the link in the descriptions. We've got several links for some of our sponsors, but the top link is going to be year 7 of Rocking Around the 412. If you've been listening, you've already heard me talk about it every single week for the past couple months, but we're going to continue to talk about it until mid-December. It's our Christmas fundraiser that we've been doing the past 6 years. Raised over $32,000 to be able to provide children in the local Pittsburgh area Christmas. Smitty and I never had to worry about where Christmas was coming from growing up, and we wanted to be able to give back. And with the help of everybody that's donated, we've been able to help dozens of kids across the local 724-412 area codes. Want to continue to do that as much as we can this year. So there is a GoFundMe link for year 7 of Rock Around the 412 in the description. Also, we have partnered with the East Rochester Salvation Army as well. If you want to adopt kids off of their angel tree, you can do that at Keeks Barbershop, another one of our sponsors, or you can contact us directly, or you can contact the East Rochester Salvation Army directly as well. And the gifts for the Salvation Army specifically have to be into the Salvation Army by December 9th. Our mission will go a few days after that for the GoFundMe and everything, but that is a strict cutoff for the Salvation Army itself, December 9th. But if you're interested in any of that, go check it out at the description below.
Absolutely. I do want to add one caveat in there. Not that you didn't mention it. You mentioned the December 9th, but that is things have to be already there. So like you don't have up until that date to donate to it. Everything has to be to the East Rochester Salvation Army by that point. So whether you're dropping the stuff off to me, dropping it off there, or you want to donate ahead of time, I would say probably have it in even the week prior. If you're just making a monetary donation, but for sure want it to go to that, I would say like December 2nd. Be sure to have it to me by. So there we go. But good information regardless. Again, check out the link in the description to read the full mission as well as donate there. At the very least, share the mission. This is the Steelers episode. We're going to dive into some Steelers football. A lot to talk about. I feel like this is going to be a jam-packed show with how much we have to talk about. Obviously, their most recent performance in the game against the Las Vegas Raiders. A lot of QB discussion going to be going on this week and more because we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. There's got to be more wide receiver talk, and I'm sure there will be until one of two things happen. The Steelers acquire a receiver or the NFL trade deadline passes. We'll probably be talking receivers on here every episode up until that point. Let's start with this most recent game against the Las Vegas Raiders. 32-13, the Steelers finally have a comfortable win. I mean, a 19-point win is as good as you're probably going to get from the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2024. You mentioned, I feel like it was either on last episode or the one prior, about like how we really haven't had one of these games. Like asking if we're ever going to score 40 again. Sure, they didn't score 40, but this was the most comfortable win I can remember. I don't know if it happened at all last year where I felt like this, or even the year prior. Maybe going back to like
about that Bengals game last year where they put up 38.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I forget what they put up. It was in the 30s.
No, you're right. By the time
it doesn't happen often.
Quarter for sure. Yeah. Well, I'm not saying they hadn't scored 30, but like a comfortable win, more so than the idea of scoring 30 plus. But you're right. By the time that one got to, the fourth quarter, it was definitely a win. So you're right. It's happened periodically, but to be able to just sit back, relax, and just watch a football game doesn't happen too often. We're typically on the edge of our seats. That wasn't the case Sunday. What did you see?
I saw improved defensive play. The big thing that stuck out to me, and I know a lot of people want to talk about how the defense is not the issue. I agree with you 100%. However, the last couple of weeks, especially on third down, the defense had been getting gashed for like a 65% clip. They couldn't get off the field on third down. I believe the Raiders, without looking at it, went 2 for 11 on third down. Massive improvement on that end. You got some splash plays. You got an interception, 2 punch outs by TJ Watt. I mean, what a player. Even if he's not getting into the backfield on a sack, in the run game, he is still just as effective. Unbelievable effort.
Did you say 2 for 11?
Yes.
That's what the Raiders were 2 for 11 on third down, 1 for 3 on fourth down. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, I was looking at it earlier, so I thought I was pretty close to that. But yeah, it was. I knew it was like a 2 for something, but 2 for 11. Great effort on third down. They were able to get themselves off the field in those situations. I thought you saw a lot of good individual efforts too. Like I thought Patrick Queen had his best day as a Steeler. That's the game that a lot of us have been waiting for him to have. Thought he looked great. I thought that Deshaun Elliott still looked great in back there. Dante Jackson, like I said, gets the pick. Overall, the defense to me just picked it up a notch. And this is something that we kind of expected because we were saying how this is a good opportunity game for the Steelers to be able to turn it around things defensively that they had been lacking against the Colts and against Dallas. They were able to do so because of the quarterback issues and the lack of skill position, specifically receiver, that the Raiders are dealing with. I mean, Brock Bowers was pseudo wide receiver 1 for them. He still had a good day.
Dude, he was
not effective enough for the Raiders to be able to do anything offensively. And the defense benefited from that. I thought this was back on track to being what we expect week in and week out from the Steelers defense. And then offensively, I thought this was the best game that they had done running the football. Najee Harris, I mean, what a player. What an absolute game he had on Sunday. It was arguably his best effort as a Steeler, but one of the best, if not the best for sure. That 30, how long was that touchdown? 38 yards, 39-yard touchdown run. The one to the left side where he dove to the pylon, which, by the way, was not well blocked at all. He 36 yards. Thank you. It was not well blocked at all. He still had to break through some tackles and get around some guys to get that edge. And then he was able to dive for that pylon, plus a few other plays, making some guy miss on another nice run later in that game. Absolutely ridiculous effort from Najee Harris. It made me start to wonder, like, did the Steelers mess up a little bit, not picking up the 5th-year option, not extending Najee Harris at all? And I know that there's still a lot of football to be played. We'll see how Jaylen Warren goes. But, like, seeing how limited Jaylen Warren's been in the beginning of the season and then seeing a game like that with Najee Harris, even if it's not correct, it tends for me to think that what if they should have at least given him that 5th-year option, if not given him a little extension, because you don't know what next year is going to bring with the running backs. And also Justin Fields, I thought he had a good day on his legs, but the passing game, that left a lot to be desired. I thought he was very inaccurate. One of either last week or this week was definitely his most inaccurate game as a Steeler. And I thought that the passing game was just overall on him more so than the receivers in this one. I think that the receivers were getting open. I just think he was missing them. But to his credit, still is able to do things with his legs. He's able to escape the pocket, gets a couple rushing touchdowns. So it's interesting to see. I mean, we're going to talk about that in the quarterback discussion that we're going to have later on. But on the Sunday, kind of an inverse of how I've felt about the Steelers' offense so far this season. Like, they were actually able to run the football efficiently and do some good things on the ground without Justin Fields, because up to that point, I don't think that's something that they had been able to do. So having Najee Harris having the game that he had, I thought it was really good. What did you think?
I thought it was Najee's best game as a Steeler. You know, I know that he might not have had his highest total yardage in this one. I just thought from an efficiency standpoint, over 7 yards a carry in this one, I thought he was doing things that you typically don't see him do. I mean, that move that he puts on Jack Jones in the open space. But that's the thing. It's like, are these things that he can't do, or is it like when he is in space, if he ever has a hole that big, he could do that if the offensive line does block that well in those situations. And even the move that he put on Robert Spillane in a phone booth, which was the first before he broke up the field for that long touchdown run. We got to the line of scrimmage and there was like a crowd of people. He put a move on Robert Spillane to be able to break free. I thought the explosive runs that we just haven't seen, I think he had 3 or 4 in this game. And I just don't think that you've seen that. And he'll argue that. I think if he heard me say that, he'd be like, no, I look the same as I always do. I don't think that was the case. To your point about, extending him I think that we agreed, like, we would have picked up the 5th-year option. We didn't want to give him an 100%. Extension and have him be, part of the long-term future just because of the position he plays, the miles that they've already put on those legs, and just assuming, like, we don't want to be the team to give him that contract after this. But for $6.8 million next season, I would have done that and brought him and Jaylen Warren back for at least one more year in 2025. And then you let him walk after that, because I feel like $6.8 million, that cost control, I don't think that they should have passed up on. They decided to do so. I don't think he's going to change my mind about the extension part of that. I think that he didn't need to change my mind about the 5th-year option, because I thought the team should have picked it up. But if this is the version of Najee Harris that we are going to see going forward, I mean, what a game changer. What's going on, everybody? Smitty from Around the 412, and I just want to take a quick second to give a shout out to our folks at Game Changers. Their logo on the screen right now, right above my microphone. Over 2,000 different designs in their catalog. Luxury heavyweight material. I am wearing one of their shirts right now. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Head over to gamechanger.la or pick6.la to pick up some shirts. And guess what? Use code AT412. Save yourself $10 on your order every single time. Again, gamechanger.la or pick6.la. Best vintage t-shirts in the game. Check them out. So I think to get that version of Najee Harris, you mentioned Jaylen Warren in there. I think that he probably shouldn't have came back in this game. Like, I still don't think that you're seeing the Jaylen Warren that we expected to see in this Jets game. This upcoming Jets game was the game that we were circling beforehand, thinking he was going to return in. So I don't know that he should have been out there this past Sunday. I don't necessarily think he was bad, but I also think that they were very fortunate that Najee was running the way that he was, to be able to not have to need Jaylen Warren or any of the other backs like Jonathan Ward, who we saw a little bit down the stretch when this game got out of hand. The other name that you mentioned in there that I want to talk about, going back to the defensive side, I know we're jumping around a little bit here, and I apologize for that, but it's just, when you do a show like this and we like to kind of just do it off the cuff and not be so formatted, this is the way that things turn out sometimes. The name you mentioned in there was Patrick Queen, and I am very, very encouraged by what we saw on Sunday from Patrick Queen, because I know that there were a lot of people pressing the panic button, and I wasn't quite there yet. And I understand the level of competition in this one as well, but the speed that he was playing at, I think, is the difference for me. Like, understanding that the process over the results here for me more than anything else. Like, sure, obviously getting the blowout win was great and everything like that. But I think that there were some questions about the defense that they had to answer, and even understanding the level of competition they faced, I think that they answered them. I think that this is a great boost for morale as well when you have a performance like this that can carry over. So I just think the arrow is pointing up right now for Patrick Queen, to see him making some splash plays in the backfield like that. Thought he was very sound in coverage, thought things were getting communicated well on the back end as well, and he's responsible for a lot of that, wearing the green dot. So easily his best game as a Steeler. But I also just feel very good about the place that he is in and where the defense is in now going forward because of the place that he's in. Dante Jackson getting another pick. Just a very, very great day for the defense after the first drive. Don't know why that happens. 4 out of the 6 games this year, they've given up points on the first drive, but then they just settle in. And I think that's kind of a mark of a great defense, because in this league in 2024, you're going to give up yards. You're going to give up points. How do you respond when that happens? Look at the way that the Steelers have been able to adjust after those bad first drives.
Yeah, I think the same thing, and this is something that we brought up on last week's Steelers show too, speaking of Patrick Queen and the defense, and also I believe we mentioned it as well on Steelers Saturday Sit Down. If you haven't, check us out on Saturday mornings, going live at 10 a.m. Eastern, previewing the Steelers' upcoming games on that Sunday. This week we're going to be talking about the Jets.
In a couple weeks, we'll be previewing a game for a Monday.
That's true. That's true. But yeah, Steelers Saturday Sit Down. If you haven't, check us out at 10 a.m. on Saturday. But yeah, with Patrick Queen and the defense, something that we talked about too is like, it seemed like especially in that Dallas game and in the Colts as well, a lot of miscommunication. Didn't seem like the coverages knew exactly where people were supposed to be. And I think that Patrick Queen and the defense called a better game. They knew what their assignments were. It looked more sound to me. Like, yeah, you give up a touchdown on the opening drive, but then they really settled in. And the Raiders were never really efficient from that point on. Like, sure, they got some things going. Brock Bowers got his own. He had, 9 catches for 71 yards. Solid day from him. But realistically, the Raiders never had a threat offensively again after that first drive, at least a serious threat in the game. And I think that goes to better communication on the defense as well. Everything just looked a lot more technically sound, and you didn't see lapses of judgment when it comes to the secondary conversing with the linebackers. You didn't see any of that that miscommunication. So I thought that was a better thing from the defense. Another thing that, and this is also flip-flopping, but like you mentioned, we kind of go off the cuff. I wanted to mention, too, about the running backs. So with Jaylen Warren, while I was talking about Najee, like I mentioned, like Jaylen Warren is limited. So that's why I don't want to say for sure, like this is something that we're going to see week in and week out from Jaylen Warren. And going forward, I'm sure if he's healthy, he's going to be a sufficient running back. But with Najee Harris performing like he does, and like you had mentioned before the ad, like how much of a game changer that is for the Steelers offense, if they're able to have somebody else run the football efficiently, that makes them so much less one-dimensional than they have been already, because we know what they are in the passing game. Very inefficient. Justin Fields has been very inaccurate the past few weeks. Guys early on haven't been getting open, but even when they are getting opened, a lot of the time Justin isn't able to hit them. And so what they've really had to rely on is Justin's legs. And they haven't really gotten a efficient game from any of their running backs up to this point. So if Najee Harris is able to spell what Justin Fields is doing in the run game, and also an add on to that as well, that's something that to me I just think it makes them a lot less one dimensional, because they're going to have to defend differently than just Justin Fields with his legs, with opposing defenses moving forward, because I don't think that any defense is really threatened by what Justin can do with their arm, especially when you look at how accurate he's been, plus what the wide receivers are that he's throwing to. If they were able to shut him down with his legs, that makes it very easy to defend the Steelers offense. But if they're not going to be able to do that because they also have Najee Harris running the football better, I just think that makes the overall offensive scheme better and more efficient for the Steelers too.
I think the other thing with Najee, and this is just really for the rest of this year, because I think the assumption now from everyone is that he's going to walk after this year. But, finding comfort and hope going forward for the rest of this year that maybe he is a better scheme fit than we thought. Because I think that, at least for me, there were a lot of questions about like the type of runner that he is, marrying with a lot of Arthur Smith concepts. And I think this game hopefully is a sign that maybe it's a better marriage than we thought. And, if we continue to see this performance going forward, he's not going to change my mind necessarily about the long-term future here. I thought it was a mistake to not pick up his fifth-year option, but I think that the plan of attack now is to get the most out of him that you can the rest of this year. And then you move forward with Jaylen Warren, maybe a mid-round draft pick, and maybe one of the backs that are on the roster right now also coming back next year. I don't know. But I feel a little bit better about Najee within this offense, at least for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that obviously 2024 is the focus, but if you're looking past this year, I just don't want to turn into the Giants, looking at what Saquon did leaving and going to Philly. And now I'm sure a lot of Giants fans are regretting him leaving New York, or I guess I should say New Jersey, but
yeah. East Rutherford. Is that where they are? Where are the Giants located? Where's MetLife Stadium?
I honestly have no clue. I just know it's New Jersey.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, first off, I know that you're not saying this, but just to put the comments to rest before they even come in, not comparing Najee Harris to Saquon Barkley.
No, I'm not. I'm not. 100% not. That's not what I'm doing. Saquon is better than Najee Harris. Najee Harris, still a decent back. I more so just mean you enter 2025, don't have a clear-cut back in your backfield, and someone else has Najee Harris. Ashton Jeanty, what are they taking him in the top 5?
The latest mock draft from 33rd team has them taking him at number 20.
Do you think Jeanty's even going to be there at 20?
No, I don't. After Emeka Egbuka goes at 19, I was heartbroken.
I'm just going to – if the Steelers went into this draft knowing what they have at wide receiver and they drafted a running back in round 1, I might lose my mind.
Well, they're drafting a receiver as well if they draft Ashton Jeanty. but I hear what you're saying.
I guess. But yeah, I don't know.
Anyway, let's talk about the rest of that offense. We talked about Fields within there as well. I agree. The last 2 weeks have not been good for him as a passer. Luckily, he's been able to make the plays with his legs. Kind of takes us into this conversation now. Mike Tomlin in his Tomlin Tuesday press conference was talking about the quarterback position. Obviously, we knew it needed addressed. Russell healthy enough to be the number 2 last week and be active, even though Justin started the game. This, because of that, lines up to be the week where there really has to be a decision made. It wasn't announced on Tuesday, during Tomlin Tuesday, who the starter would for sure be. We know Russ is going to mix in with the ones. Both guys, according to Tomlin, are going to have a chance to be the starting quarterback for this football team on Sunday Night Football against Aaron Rodgers, Davante Adams in the New York Jets. How do you see this playing out? How do you want it to play out? As well as how do you think that it's going to? I want both because I think that those could definitely be different answers.
Man, I think this has flip-flopped so much since week 1. I mean, even going before week 1, going into the preseason, OTAs, when we signed both these guys, my outlook on the Steelers quarterback position has been so fluid with how this season has gone. And I think that Mike Tomlin is in for a very tough decision as head coach. And I think, first off, I just want to say, forget 2025. Forget the 2025 offseason. Throw all of that out the window. Mike Tomlin's not looking at it. Mike Tomlin doesn't care about it. Everything about this decision is going to happen because of what's going to happen in 2024. So with that being said, that's where I find it so tough still. Because obviously those people that want to just look at the future, and I'm not going to lie, I've looked at the future somewhat. I'm less certain that Justin Fields could be anything for the future of this franchise now than I ever have been. But if you have that opinion where you want something for the future, obviously the answer would be Justin Fields and just keep with him, because what future do you have with Russ? However, if you're only looking at it from this season standpoint, I think there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Because one, we just mentioned the passing inability that we've seen from Justin Fields the past few weeks. I mean, for the majority of the season, but it's been very apparent the past couple of weeks. And that's something that you could get a boost in if you do start Russell Wilson. I don't think there's any of us that would deny that he's probably the better passer at this point. We still have to see him play, but I think that's all assumption that and many of us would have, that he's going to be the better passer if he comes in, and he might be able to operate that passing game more efficiently than what Justin has been able to do. But at the same time, I don't trust that a 36-year-old Russell Wilson is going to have the legs still to be able to maneuver in a pocket that is not always clean. There's times where the offensive line struggles, and I don't trust necessarily that Russell Wilson is going to be able to maneuver in that pocket like we've seen Justin Fields be able to do. So the discussion gets to the point where, do you value what boost you could get from a passing game with Russell Wilson more than what you get with Justin Fields' legs? And that's why I think it's such a tough decision for Mike Tomlin, because of the way this offense is operating. You really have a fine line, I feel like, of where this is going to go. And that's what I think they're going to do. If I have to make a prediction of who's going to start against New York on Sunday, I'm going to say it's going to be Russell Wilson. But what I think I would do if I were making the decision, I don't know, especially with the wide receivers that you have. I mean, sure, maybe George Pickens will get the ball more. Maybe Pat will get the ball more. But looking at the receivers you have, how much better is the offense going to be if you can get these receivers the ball a little bit more? I don't think that it's going to be a staggering amount. I don't think it's going to be something that is making this a high caliber offense at all. But what I don't think that you can do is take away the importance of Justin Fields' legs, the way he's able to maneuver the pocket, and the way he's able to have designed runs and have that be a key part of the offense in the schematics for game planning against these defenses. I would still stick with Justin Fields, not because I think he's necessarily the better quarterback, but I think that the Steelers are better suited right now with their personnel to have him as the quarterback, really just because of his lower half. His top half, what he can do with his arm, you hope it improves, but I just think that you can't get rid of what he can do with his legs, because we've all seen the videos of Russell Wilson, and I know his calf has been injured and whatnot. I just don't trust that he's going to be able to maneuver that well in the pocket. I think that it could lead to more sacks. I mean, there's several times where Justin Fields should be sacked, and he doesn't because of his legs. How many of those are going to turn into sacks because we're starting Russell Wilson? That's the question I would have. But at the same time, I don't feel strongly about it either way. Like, if they start Russell Wilson, I'm very intrigued to see how it goes. And if they continue to go with Justin Fields, I'm intrigued to see how that offense performs too. And I think that if you really want to get down to it, we've talked about this before. When you're getting it into the red zone or something, is there a world where you could use both quarterbacks? I know that's probably a terrible idea from any actual NFL person that never works in the NFL. Nobody ever really does it outside of the Saints, if you want to call him a quarterback still, with Taysom Hill and what they do with him sometimes. But I think that you can't get rid of what you get from Justin Fields, even if Russell Wilson is the starter. I don't think that you can just completely forget about Justin Fields' legs and what a weapon they are in your offense.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of boring because pretty much everything that you said is I would echo. I mean, Alan and I discussed the same thing on today's episode of Steelers Afternoon Drive, and I'm with you. Predictably, I think it's going to be Russ, and I think Justin has left a lot of plays on the field through the air on tape over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, what he brings with his legs has been great. It's been the basis of their offense for a large part of the season. And it's just trying to figure out, weighing how much of that is because of the performance of the offensive line, how much of that is the receivers not being very good, but how much of that is also because he's turning down throws. And that's what I feel like I saw a lot of on Sunday, was him turning down throws for whatever reason, whether he's not seeing it or the lack of confidence. I'm not sure. I don't think he lacked confidence, so I would not lean that way towards why he isn't throwing the football. But he isn't in times where there are guys completely wide open. Calvin Austin individually on tape had an awesome game on Sunday. You'd never know that by looking at the box score. What do you have, 2 catches for whatever? So like it just it really didn't show up because Justin wasn't getting him the football, but he was open a ton. There's a play where, Van Jefferson, who's the least open receiver in the NFL, was wide open and would have had a touchdown in this game, and Justin turned it down and didn't throw him the ball. There's just a lot of examples from this past Sunday of Justin doing that. If they make this change, going to Russell Wilson, it will be because of that. They feel like it's a calculated move where they feel like the trade-off for what Russ would bring to them in the passing game is higher than what Justin would bring them as a runner. And I'll be honest, I don't agree with that if that's the way that they go. Because in most circumstances, in most offenses, even if you go back to the 2023 Steelers, where you had Deontay Johnson along with George Pickens, I would say Russell Wilson's probably the better quarterback to play. But because of the lack of weapons that they have and the state of the offensive line, I don't know that Russell Wilson can survive. I feel like Justin's survival instincts, almost more so than anything else, are why he should remain this team's quarterback, at least through these next couple games, because the Jets and Giants aren't necessarily feeding Russ to a level of competition that's kind of like a get right spot. Because despite the records of those teams, the Jets defense very good. The Giants front seven with Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns,
they ate up Joe Burrow.
Linemen. Yeah, 2 of the best defensive linemen playing right now in the NFL. Yeah, I don't think that that's a welcome back for Russell Wilson. So I would continue on with Justin until he was so bad that you couldn't play him, because they're still winning with the performances that they're getting from him. I think the bigger issue for me is that he's going backwards, because that home opener game against the Chargers, and especially the second half against Indy, very encouraging. And I thought the arrow was pointing up. The problem is, and the worrisome part of it is, the arrow has been pointing back down now for 2 straight weeks.
No, I agree with that. And I think that if by chance, because I feel like we need to say, Tomlin never said that Russ is going to start.
Sure.
There's just an opportunity that he could start.
And in the past, wouldn't you think, based off the way that Tomlin's operated, that we continue rolling with Justin? Like if they go to Russ, it's a move that they typically wouldn't make based off the fact that they're 4-2 right now.
Yeah, I agree with you. But I think that you're looking at a scenario where Justin Fields, if you are the starter, your leash is as short as it has been. And I think that you're probably looking at a chance where you're not finishing the game if you're performing bad. Russell Wilson will just come in and replace you. That's where I think we're at with this point, because if they're debating on starters, if they have a bad case of a few drives in a row with the offense, why shouldn't Tomlin make that switch to see what kind of spark it could bring? I like I said, I don't envy Tomlin in this decision, because I think there's a case to be made for either one. And I think there's a real case to be made for either one. I just think that I agree with you. I would stick with Justin Fields right now because of what he could do with his legs. You mentioned the offensive line. Zach Frazier out week to week with an ankle injury. Mason McCormick is a rookie, and I know he's been playing very well, but he's still a rookie. And against the defensive lines he's going to be playing over the next couple of weeks. We'll see how that goes. Broderick Jones has been, quite honestly, just like a mess at right tackle. I don't know what to do at that position with him right now. I thought he got better after, what was it, that the Chargers game or the Colts game? I forget which game it was, where the week after he was thrust in there because Troy Fautanu was named injured for the rest of the season. I thought
Denver was the last game that Troy played. So like the Chargers game, we knew Broderick was starting.
Okay. I thought that was a good game for him, but then the past few weeks it has been just hit and miss on every other play, and I don't know what to make of that. And I don't want to
completely absolve him, but his assignment this past Sunday was Max Crosby as well, and I thought he was mostly fine in the run game.
I get that in the run game, but that's not where I'm worried about Russell Wilson though.
Yeah. Right.
In the past game, like how many missed assignments are we going to see from Broderick? Because there was that in the past game this week. It was very evident. So that's where I'm like, I don't know what to make of the offensive line as far as how much protection he's going to get, which is why I don't necessarily trust Russell Wilson's legs and mobility in the pocket at this point in his career. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I wonder by the time we talk for Steelers Saturday sit down, I wonder if we are going to have a starter named or if it's going to be like a game time decision.
We'll know. We'll know. I mean, we'll be able to read the tea leaves at the very least.
I would say, is that like a will know because of hashtag sources, or is that like will know because it's going to be named?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that it'll be officially named, but we will know, and we can talk about it on there.
Yeah.
All right, so let's dive into the last thing I want to talk about then. A little bit of wide receiver roundup. A ton of wide receiver news out of today, and none of it involves the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. Davante Adams going from the Raiders to the Jets. Everybody put on your shocked face with that move happening. The Jets fell to 2-4 last night with their loss on Monday Night Football to the Buffalo Bills, and it just seemed inevitable. This team's going to get desperate. They're going to give up probably a 2. It didn't end up being a 2, probably won't be a 2. There's a condition on it, but they have to make the AFC Championship game or him be a first or second team All-Pro. Neither one of those things I foresee happening. The All-Pro thing, maybe if he would have been healthy the entire year, but it's not going to happen. And I don't see them as being good enough to be in the AFC Championship. So assuming a third-round pick goes back, but they take on the entire contract. So the Raiders not paying any of it down. As of right now, no contract extension for Davante Adams in place, no rework deal in terms of that. So we'll see if that happens. In kind of combination with that, Mike Williams now being made available. That was somebody the Steelers wanted to meet with before he signed with the Jets, but never got out of their building this spring to come on a flight to get to Pittsburgh to visit with the Steelers. So we'll see if they circle back on that. Amari Cooper traded from the Browns to the Bills. So another team in the AFC very much in Super Bowl contention, going out and getting a receiver, gets Amari Cooper out of the division. And then in getting Amari Cooper, they released Marquez Valdes-Scantling, who was somebody probably in like that, I don't know, third wave of free agency, I would say, that I was somewhat interested in just because he brings a trait to the offense. Like he could stretch the field. That was basically all that Green Bay or Kansas City asked him to do. Certainly had some moments in the playoffs with Kansas City and some Super Bowl runs, but he's a run-of-the-mill receiver. And Mike Williams probably, sapped of that athleticism. He doesn't look like the same player coming off that ACL injury. But I'll be honest, predictively, Mike Williams has to be up there at the top of the list, right? For guys that could become Steelers before the trade deadline. I feel like it just makes so much sense in terms of what he is. He's a big-bodied receiver that plays on the outside. That kind of seems like what they've been looking for. He can block at the very least. He's a downfield target, and they tried to meet with him in free agency. So he checks a lot of boxes there. I bet you that the call's already been made. We'll see if they can come to terms on compensation, because I'll be honest, outside of like a day 3 pick swap, not much that I'm interested in giving up for Mike Williams just for the rest of 2024.
Yeah, and that's why I think the receiver discussion from this point on is going to be interesting to see how it plays out, because we knew the conversation, what that was going to be with a guy like Brandon Ayuk, and we knew the rumored conversation for what it should have been for Davante Adams. Moving forward, you're kind of out of the realm of day 2 picks for any receiver that you're going to make.
Oh, can I just say too, I want to add this because there's a lot of people that are talking about the Steelers not trying for Davante Adams. They offered a 3rd-round pick to the Raiders. The problem is the Raiders are looking at, okay, this team is 4-2 offering us a 2nd-round or a 3rd-round pick. This team is 2-4 offering us a 3rd-round pick that could become a 2. We're not expecting that to become a 2, but their 3 still going to be higher. Plus, Davante wants to go there, and it probably does better for him if this team is willing to try to sign him to a contract extension beyond this too. The Steelers were not going to give up a 3rd-round pick, plus have to pay his entire salary for the rest of the season and not have a reworked contract in place. It wasn't happening, but I do know that they would have been willing to give up a 3rd-round pick for Davante Adams. Now, along with paying the full contract, probably not. And they probably would. And I knew they wanted to rework the 2 years remaining on that deal too. But certainly the 3rd-round pick part of that, they didn't have an issue parting with.
Yeah, and so with Davante Adams going to the Jets, that goes with the day 2 pick receivers that the Steelers should be willing to trade for. Everyone else to this point on is going to be a day 3 pick, or you're not going to make a trade. Or at least I hope they don't make a trade. Because now you're talking about guys like Mike Williams, who that one is definitely at the top of my list for most likely, just because of the rumored interest in the summer. It never got to that point because he never left the Jets facility, it seemed like, and just signed there when he got there. But that's at least the most interesting one to me to see how that plays out. But there's other guys that are out there that could be in the realm of possibility if you do want to make a trade. I know one that we've brought up on the show multiple times, DeAndre Hopkins. I think that one's interesting. The one that I actually am really interested in, and I don't know that a lot of people have been like talking about it a ton as far as interest go, or if there's any interest. I'm really interested in Adam Thielen, coming off of his hamstring injury. I'm really interested in Adam Thielen. I think that he could do some good things for the Steelers. He's coming off of, like, say what you will for a 34-year-old receiver. He's still coming off of a 100-catch, 1,000-yard season the year prior.
Crazy
so
that he caught 100 balls last year. He was they got Deontay Johnson in there this year, but he was Deontay Johnson last year.
Yeah, really. I mean, and that's what I mean. Like, I think that based off the skill set, even at this age, I'd be very interested in him. I know that they're 3-3, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. But like Cortland Sutton, still a possibility, but I don't know how much they're going to want to try to get Bo Nix more involvement with him. Like,
I mean,
as far
I
as
think they would look
development goes.
I think they'd look like idiots trading him now for a day 3 pick, because you could have had a 3rd before the season. Like, what did you hold on to him to 6-7 games for?
Right.
Just to have him play with Bo Nix for a little bit of time. Like, it would be very stupid. They would look foolish, but it's very possible that it happens because that's the way the NFL works. The name you hadn't mentioned yet is probably number 1 on my list now, because we're kind of resetting with the names that are still available. I don't think you mentioned it unless I missed it. Darius Slayton of the Giants.
No, I didn't say it.
Yeah, that's my number 1 guy.
That's another one that I think that would be interesting. One that I saw thrown around for like maybe a potential interest is Christian Kirk if Jacksonville continues to slide. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that necessarily should happen. I don't think it's going to happen. If you're going to get a guy, it's going to be an outside guy. So I just don't see that happening. I think that realistic options for what you're looking for Mike Williams, DeAndre Hopkins, Adam Thielen. Darius Slayton is a good shout. And I think Courtland Sutton would be. I just don't think the Broncos are going to be doing that. But Mike Williams to me is that's the one that I think is the most likely. I don't know, because you kind of have to gauge it out of who is bad. Like, I don't think that I don't think that anybody would have thought. I mean, there's no way that Amari Cooper would have ever gone to Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure the Cleveland Browns would have rather drank bleach than trade with the Steelers like that.
Allen said they'd rather send him to the Cuyahoga River than send him.
Yeah, like there's no way that was going to happen. Davante Adams didn't happen. I'm not sure if there's anybody else that we're missing as far as like what would be obvious.
I don't think they would do it, like, because they'd have nobody. Would the Raiders trade their other receiver, Jacoby Myers?
Well, Jacoby Myers? I'd be interested in that, but
I mean, but I don't think they would do it. Yeah.
Now they would literally be playing this past game every single week. It's just Brock Bowers getting targeted 15 times a game.
Yeah. I don't think that they would be able to sell that, but hey,
what you mentioned with Mike Williams though is interesting to me too, because I think that's something that they need to value, is a guy that is going to be able to block because of the lack of blocking that you currently have in your receiver room. I think you need to be able to get that edge set on the outside for some of these runs. I think that will be better for your offense overall if you're able to get a guy like that. So even if Mike Williams isn't lighting it up in the receiving yards, but he's able to be a better blocker than some of the guys we got right now, I'd be interested in that. But like we said on several shows, the floor of this receiver room is so low right now that realistically anybody you bring in is going to be an upgrade. Out of all the names we mentioned, it is going to be an upgrade. And another thing is, well, it's kind of like wait and see. What is Roman Wilson going to be in this offense too? He only had 5 snaps on Sunday, so you can't really
only one route ran. He was in there mainly to block on the fourth play.
So you can't even say whether he had a good or a bad game realistically. So that's kind of like waiting to see how he develops more. But I think even if Roman Wilson is going to develop with an upward trajectory, I still think you should, for 2024, you need to add in another receiver if you want a realistic option of winning now. So that's where I'm at with it as far as trading for one goes. Otherwise, the only other option is you just don't trade for one and you kind of eat it with what you have right now, and you just deal with it the rest of the season. And that's where, like, if they trade for a receiver, I think that going back to the quarterback conversation, you trade for a receiver, that's where I get maybe a little more interested in what Russell Wilson could do as the starter if they can open the passing game up more. If they don't trade for another receiver and your receiver room is the way it's going to be the rest of the season, I think you're better off just having Justin Fields as the starter the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree. The other part of the wide receiver discussion too is, do you want the guy to be a rental or to have, term? Because like a lot of these guys would be rentals at this point. Christian Kirk has next year on his deal, but again, I don't know if that's super, like $21 million in dead cap for the Jaguars if they trade him. So like, I don't know if that's super feasible. Darius Slayton is a UFA, but he's 28 years old and he was on a 2-year, $12 million extension prior to this. Like if you're just basically redoing that, maybe a little bit of a bump, I'd sign up for that. I mean, even if you're talking about somewhere in the $8 to $10 million per, like that's completely fine for me, for him. And that's obviously not anywhere near number one money. So I don't know where they're at with George in terms of his long-term future here. You know how I feel at this point about that. I think that we're just stuck in a cycle with him, and I don't know if they view him as a guy that you can build around. But if they do, it wouldn't prevent them from giving him wide receiver one money, giving Slayton an extension that kind of mirrors that last one as well.
I feel like I got to say too, because we didn't really talk about him at all, talking about the Raiders game. Even though in the box score didn't have a great game, I did see more effort from George Pickens this week, which probably just goes into what you mentioned, is that cycle. Like,
no, but that's why the thing that didn't happen was I expected him to have a big game. I don't think that he did anything that made me question his effort on Sunday, but he didn't have the performance that I expected. He had like 3 drops.
And what was he on? I saw he was on something today talking about, and somebody asked him about the quarterback situation, and he's just like, both the guys bring like a winning mentality or something along those lines. I'm paraphrasing.
That's probably what you're going to hear all week, and they're going to have to answer a ton of questions about it. It sucks for the other guys on that team because that's what's going to be the topic of conversation in the locker room.
Yeah, he was like, the media wants to paint me as selfish, and I'm like, brother, you're sitting by yourself pouting on the bench. I don't know if we're painting anything. We're just looking at a picture.
Yeah, it isn't painted. It's just the picture itself.
It's in 8K
anyways.
on NBC.
Yeah. One thing that George does not have to worry about, and I'll be honest, I don't know if I feel this way about every receiver that's on the team right now. I don't think he's got to worry about being cut. Smitty from around the 412 here, and while I may not have much hair, the hair that I do have will not be cut by anybody besides Keek at Keek's Barbershop. My friend Christian Circle, been with us since day one. Keek's Barbershop, located 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Download the app The Cut, book an appointment with Christian today, or you can do walk-in with Tony or Ashley. But again, Keek's Barbershop, 401 Burkitch Way, Suite 2 in Beaver, PA. Go check them out. Old school vibe in there. Absolutely love it. Cannot recommend them enough. Wouldn't go anywhere else. Maybe I'll see you there. So that's where I'm at.
How you did that.
We'll see. We'll see what George looks like on Sunday night against the Jets in a very tough matchup with Sauce Gardner. But we're not going to talk about that here. We'll save that, obviously, for Steelers Saturday Sit Down, where we preview that upcoming matchup every single week in typically a live stream. As long as Tyler and I are both here, it will continue to be a live stream on Saturday mornings, not Sunday mornings, for Sunday, or in the case of a couple weeks, Monday's game, which, by the way, I guess I can drop maybe a little Smitty scoop here. I know somebody that produces the jerseys for the team. Monday Night Football against the Giants. They're breaking them out, baby. The color rush is back. So they're going block numbers this Sunday night against the Jets. Color rush Monday night against the Giants. Back-to-back weeks with alternates. I'm excited about it. Literally just got that info today.
Back-to-back weeks. Man, I'm going to come.
What was weird is that what was weird to me was they didn't announce that they were wearing the throwbacks, the block numbers until today. Like that's typically done well in advance.
Yeah.
I feel like last year, my guy that hit me up told me like a month before about the color rush against the Patriots. And like today he messaged me and was like, hey, did you see about the block numbers? And then sent me like TJ's jersey that has like the 50 or whatever the patches this year.
Yeah, the Super Bowl anniversary sort of thing.
Yeah. The Super Bowl thing
years from that anniversary.
So it'd be the 74 Super Bowl one that they're honoring. So he sent me TJ's jersey and then he was like, yep. And then we got Color Rush next week. I was like, whoa, what? So there you go. Excited. Also got to give a shout out to the folks at Branded and Butler. They've been sending me some free stuff. I'm rocking one of the shirts right now. Bus got 5. We do. Shout out to Branded and Butler. Big fan of their merch. They've been sending me some care packages here and there. Be sure to check them out. You can use code Zachary412 over there to save yourself 10%. And maybe I get a little bit of a kickback. I'm not going to tell you if I do, but maybe I do if you use that code. So be sure to do that.
Shameless self-promotion.
Yeah, they're not even
along with all of our other promotions that we have.
Yeah, I'm rocking the merch, but they're not like an official sponsor of the show. But if they want to be, please be sure to do so. I'm going to continue to rock their stuff. I'm sure Tyler would love to as well. So, Branded and Butler, be sure to check them out. Check out all the links that we have in the description, by the way, including our friend Haley Wagner's small business, Everything Custom Designs. I haven't heard from her. I don't know what's going on right now. I don't know if she has a website yet or what's going on. So her Facebook page is the only thing that we got linked right now. I know she's still taking orders. She's still been active in terms of posting stuff for it. But she does our hoodies. She does t-shirts, long sleeves. She does tumblers. She does a bunch of stuff. Halloween's coming up. I don't know if she can still get you in for that, but certainly Thanksgiving, Christmas, those types of things. If you want to get on board, be sure to hit her up for any of your custom needs. And yeah, you can get our merch as well through her. I believe you can still place all those orders. Just the Etsy stuff right now, a little bit wonky. She's working on getting her own website. I have no idea what that process is because we don't have our own website, or I'd be able to maybe give her some insight into how to do so, but we don't. You can find our shorts, DC4L Customs, in the description. game changers or pick six, which we talked about earlier in the show. Go down there, use code AT412, save yourself $10. A bunch of Steelers designs on the site right now, and I'm sure more are on the way. Actually, I know one's on the way because I specifically requested a Chris Boswell one. I don't know if there's any kickers currently on the site. I hope not. This will be the first one. Deserves to be the first one. Like Justin Tucker, maybe. I haven't looked.
That's the only guy that probably came up to my head. It's Justin Tucker, maybe.
Right now, Brandon Aubrey probably deserves one. I think he's as good as it gets in the league for the Dallas Cowboys. Boz definitely deserves one, though. So we need to get on that for sure. And then, of course, year 7, rocking around the 412. Every single penny that you guys donate to this thing goes directly to impacting our community by giving back to kids in the 724 and 412 area codes. We give them a Christmas that they otherwise would not have. Tyler, I never had to worry about where Christmas was coming from growing up. That's the heart of this mission. That's the roots of this mission. Again, every single penny that you guys donate goes directly to that. We also started partnering up 3 years ago with the East Rochester Salvation Army, their angel tree that they do every year at Christmas in the name of our late friend Dalton Keene. So if you want to be involved with that, that stuff all needs to be done by December 9th. Everything needs to be returned to the East Rochester Salvation Army by December 9th. So whether it's monetary directly to us or you want to adopt the tag yourself, reach out to us. I'll get you the information, but everything needs to be back to that building by December 9th. Cannot stress that enough. That is a hard cutoff date. I try to give some leeway in terms of the mission itself. Can't with that. That's not me doing it. That's not my call. So shout out to Mary Kay over there at the East Rochester Salvation Army. December 9th, if you want to get involved with that aspect of it. Be sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. Leave us your thoughts on anything that we talked about. Russ or Justin, that's going to be the big debate. So we want that to happen in the comments as well. Let us know how you're feeling about that. Ask us a question for a future episode. And if you're listening somewhere else, be sure to leave us a 5-star review. Subscribe over there. And then, of course, follow us on all of our social media platforms at Around the 412. For Tyler, for Smitty, this has been the Around the 412 Steelers show. We'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.